everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Paper Addict. This is a process video using our son's first round of kindergarten pictures and the Fancy Pants Be Different collection, which is several years old now. I'm going to start by mounting this ivory cardstock from, I believe this one is Close to My Heart. And I'm going to use my Nuvo liquid adhesive that has become my favorite glue, but I will end up changing the background paper later. So I'm going to say this is kindergarten round 1, because he did go to kindergarten twice through no fault of his own or his grades. He went to kindergarten early at his private school, and then when his private school closed, and he went to our local, public school, they would not honor his private school kindergarten. So he had to go based on his age, and that required that he repeat kindergarten. But it's all good. It gave him a year to adjust from going to a school that had about 40 children to a school that had about 500 children. So, yep, now I'm going to start auditioning. That's what I call it, auditioning. My different layers from the collection. These are all scraps that I have. I did have 12 by 12 sheets at this point, but I was really attempting to use up these scraps and then decide what I wanted to do with this collection. I had made several layouts from this collection already, and I still had a ton, and what I ended up doing was using my scraps, and then I put together a kit and gave it away on one of my Facebook groups that I'm in for just the cost of postage. So I start with that striped paper, and then I add a solid to tone it down. The notebook punch has been a favorite of mine lately. Obviously very perfect for school photos, but I also like that it just adds a little something onto a page without it really being another pattern. Like, obviously a scallop is very distinct, or the scallop with, the lacy look is a very distinct addition to your page. So I like that this just kind of adds a little bit of something. I chose the aqua to layer on there, since everything else that I had chosen was so dark. This photo was extremely dark. Now, it was an improvement, shockingly, from the photos of his preschool year. Those, whatever photographer was used, he actually looked orange. And in this one, he looks ghostly white. The background is so dark. So here's where you'll see I change up the background paper. The plaid for me was just, I don't know if it was because it was on, so much of it was on that left-hand side, but it was just way too distracting. So I go with this navy blue, and you see I'm using my liquid glue. You've probably heard me say this before. The reason I use liquid glue to put down my trimmed cardstock is so that if I'm not 100% straight on the first attempt, I have a little time to slide it around. When you use an ATG or any kind of tape runner, now you're, tugging and pulling, and I can't tell you how many times I ended up with a ripped piece of paper from, using that permanent glue. Normally as well, I would gut the inside of the background paper, but since I had so much of this left and I knew I was getting down to, okay, I really don't want to use this kit anymore, I used the whole entire thing. I didn't bother pulling out the center. So now I'm working on some addition, well, maybe not embellishments, but something else to take up space on the right hand side. So I have all these Project Life cards that have sayings on them, and I pulled out a bunch that the sayings could, apply to a school photo, and I went with the one that I thought looked the best. But then I also go, it's kind of plain just hanging out there. So I have a bunch of frames left from the collection, and the insides aren't big enough to show the Project Life card, obviously, but the outsides were perfect just to kind of frame that. There you go, use frames to frame, duh. But just to add a little bit of something. I did go through the die cuts, but none of them were just quite right as far as the sayings or the sizes. So I did end up going with this frame and Project Life card idea. So now I'm going to start putting down the things I know where they're going to go. That way they stop sliding around and I can kind of get a visual of, okay, this is definitely going here, that's definitely going there. I believe I add some foam to this. Let's see if I'm correct. There we go. If you watched me for any amount of time, you know that for larger items, to pop them up, I do use some Just Kids Fun Foam. It's more economical for me as far as, having to cover a whole picture in Pop Dots. It's also available locally at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, even Walmart, whereas the Pop Dots, I can only get the nice ones from Stampin' Up, and then you have to find a rep, and you have to pay shipping, and blah, 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 blah. So I reserve those for smaller areas so that they last a little bit longer. So now you're going to see I'm just going to start thinking about some embellishments. I don't need too much since I have so much patterned paper on here taking up the space, but I am going to put some flags there, or banners, or whatever you would call them, to the left of the photo, since the Project Life card and the frame give so much to the right hand side. And I end up, I'm looking at it, and I end up going with a cluster up in the upper right hand corner, because it just seemed so empty when there was so much down on the left hand side between the flags and the two patterned papers, and it needed something. So I made a small cluster out of a button, some stickers, I believe I put a tiny word sticker up there, and then that aqua piece is just the piece that I punched with the notebook punch that didn't get used under my photo. So for me, that really finished that area, that little cluster. I was actually pretty pleased with myself as I was looking at this. I'm not always very good, or I don't think I'm very good at the random clusters up at the top, or when they're called for in a sketch down at the bottom. So I'm going to add some enamel dots here, and then I'm going to pull out a pen and do some outlining. I think that's what comes next anyway. Yep, I'm fussing with more embellishments. I was really trying to use what I had. There was so much, but I needed some general shapes, not things that had monsters on them or whatever. So those are very, very old, to my mind's eye, wood sticker backed pieces. So anyway, I do end up outlining several things. I'm outlining one of the stickers. I outlined the frame because for whatever reason, as I was looking at it, it just seemed to sink into the paper, maybe because I didn't pop it up. But just outlining it a little bit gave it some pizzazz and made it stand out. So there I'm just testing out that the pen I have shows up enough on that diagonal striped paper. Sometimes I choose a different pen based on how much it shows up. So you'll see when I bring the outlining up closer to the camera that it really does make a difference. It just sets everything apart from each other so that the layers don't get lost. Especially since that diagonal paper did have the orange in it, I felt like the orange was not standing out as much as I'd like. So here is some Heidi Swap Color Shine in, I believe it's Black Velvet. I'm going to add some splatters to my layout. And then I'm pretty well done. But I wanted to tell you what I'm doing on the back of these layouts quickly before our time is done. I never know what to do with the class picture, so I've been attaching the class picture to the back of these layouts. That way I have it, but it doesn't require a whole nother layout since they are usually 8 by 10. So we're coming up to the end of this video, guys. I'd love it if you liked it, if you'd give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that little bell notification so you know every time I post a video. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I'll talk to you again soon and have a great afternoon. Bye.